Welcome to the Shine Freely podcast. I'm your host, Vicki Reeves. I host conversations with people who are authentic, bold, and kind. Through their life experience, ideas, and research, I'm learning how to shine freely. And in case anything I learn is useful for you, I want to share my experience along the way. Hello, my friends. I'm so excited to share this episode with you with Zach Biermann. He is a Kickapooian, born and raised in the Kickapoo Valley of the beautiful Driftless, Wisconsin. He's an awesome, beautiful human. I'm so happy for you to get to know him. And he's such a great example of the incredible, beautiful humans that just exist all in and around this beautiful Kickapoo Valley. These people inspire me all the time. I am so happy to be amongst them, to have them as neighbors and friends and resources and inspiration. I look forward to kayaking the Kickapoo with all of them this summer. You might want to try it too. As you're listening to this episode, a few things that you should know. If you have not been to Wisconsin, the winters here get down to minus 40 degrees. Minus 40 degrees. You might be wondering, is that Celsius or Fahrenheit? Minus 40 happens to be the number where both Celsius and Fahrenheit are the same. So whatever you are thinking, it is effing cold. And someone who was born and raised in this hell of a cold place, you know, I love this place dearly. The cold is very resembling of hell, if you ask me. Zach rather understates the impact of winter on a person's body and their fucking soul, man. Oh, sorry. Didn't mean to curse already, but here we go. Whoo! Hats off to the Biermann family. And if you want to get one of those fur hats, you should go to wildthingsfur.com. This is not a paid promotion. I'm just a fan. Check it out and enjoy this episode.
You get nervous when you do this? You get nervous?
I wouldn't say I get nervous, but I get distracted. And so I try to take a few moments to just maybe it's nervous or a little excited or something. I try to take a few moments before I start to just breathe a little bit, settle into my body. This is actually also the way I start every one of my coaching appointments. I coach people. I do these Zoom meetings one-on-one. And the first, few seconds or whatever, we'll just start by taking a few deep breaths and settling in.
Something I never do.
It's so helpful. So helpful.
I just ask because I'm, genuinely interested.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't take much time to be relaxed or to just get ready for things.
Yeah.
Trying to more, but I don't really do a very good job of it.
I mean, it's new for me just within the last few months. If you don't mind, I'm going to move that closer to your face. I can tell you don't really want it.
I don't know what it's all about.
Uh-oh.
Oh, no, it just fell on me.
You too much.
Yeah, it does.
Okay. Hello, Zach Biermann.
Hi, Vicki Reeves.
Oh my God, I'm so happy to be sitting with you here on my porch on a gorgeous spring day with a soft rain. And actually, I have to tell you that I didn't realize it till just this moment. I started this podcast last summer entirely because I wanted to sit on my porch all day and talk to interesting people. And I couldn't convince anyone to come sit on my porch with me and talk. And you're the first guest that I've been able to interview on my porch. So
That's
you're making all my
amazing.
dreams come true right now, Zach.
That's what I'm here to do.
I
Make
knew
people's
it.
dreams come true.
You do that for people. It's pretty impressive. And I find you to be a fascinating and very kind and generous human and very authentic. And I really want to hear about your life growing up in this magical, beautiful place that is exploding with life all around us as we speak and has some of the most authentic people I've ever met in my life and has for sure the most magical river I've ever been in my life. And you grew up here, and I want to hear all about it.
Well, thank you, Vicki, for inviting me here on your porch on this, like you said, amazing May day here in the Kickapoo Valley. I guess I'll get started with how we ended up here in the Kickapoo Valley. And that was my mom and dad were, they were hippies in the 70s. And they were living with my dad's mom and dad in the basement of the house. And my dad was a river rat from Harpers Ferry, Iowa, who he enjoyed running the river, trapping, fishing, and that's just what his love, that's what his passion was. And my mom was actually pregnant with me, and she's like, I'm not gonna have this baby in the house. We got to have our own house. That's how it's going to have to be. So my dad lined up this fishing trip to go to Stevens Point, Wisconsin from Harpers Ferry, and it led right through the Kickapoo Valley. And so they were driving a little Volkswagen squareback car, just like you could imagine in the 70s. And my dad was in a big hurry to get up to Stevens Point and start fishing. And my mom was like, hey, this trip was supposed to be for us to find a place to live so I can have this baby. and my dad says, well, fine, I'll pull the car over right here then. And he took a right-hand turn and he drove to the end of this dead-end abandoned road. And they found this house that was unlived in. And it had weeds that were clear up to the second-story windows. And my mom loved it.
Wow.
She said, this is perfect.
What did she love about it?
She just loved it. It had a spring, and it had a big pond, like a little pond spring. And it had an outhouse, and they didn't have running water, and it was what they could afford, because they didn't have any money. My dad, he worked odd jobs and things, and they didn't have any money, and they were going to have this new baby, which was me. In 1977, we moved here. So I was born August 7th, 1977, and so they moved. Then they went on a fishing trip, and they got a hold of the owners where the house was from, and then in like a week or so they moved in. They moved into that house, and they started working on it. And they used to have these I should say, one of the reasons why they loved this area was because the dam was being built.
Aha.
So I forgot about the dam. This is really important. And so the dam was going to be built, and they were going to have this amazing lake. And my dad is like, this is going to be perfect. This is going to be the perfect place to raise my family. I'm going to come off the Mississippi River, and I'm going to have this big lake here. I'll be able to go fishing and boating, and there's going to be trapping, and there's going to be hunting, and there's going to be lots of work to do because we're going to be building all these new houses and decks and boat docks and all this stuff, all this energy, all this was going to happen here in the Kickapoo Valley. It was all happening. And they moved in, and the dam project quickly got canceled.
All right, let's take a moment to tell that story because it's pretty interesting. I'm very interested, like, what it was like for people to live through that. So there was this dam that was going to be built in this area, which was at the time pretty much all farmers, right?
Yeah.
It was like a real rural community, not a lot of economic activity.
Yep. So the land is 10,000 acres. It's now the KVR, which we're very blessed to have. But at that time, it was owned by the Corps of Engineers, and they were building this big dam in the name of flood control.
But before it was owned by the Corps of Engineers.
Before it was owned by the Corps of Engineers, it was like around 100 families, I think, that basically got evicted off their property. They got it taken from them. Some people took, they got some money. fair market value money, and then the last people that wouldn't move away get it, their properties just condemned and taken away.
Yeah,
So
and I
it
just
left
have
a
to say that I was living outside of Ontario for a while, which,
yeah,
is a town that is pretty economically depressed. It's not a lot of money there, and a lot of people are struggling there. And we met a guy one time in town who, we've only been around here, well, 10 years now, 12 years, something, but didn't grow up around here. But we met this guy in town who told us how when he was growing up in Ontario, there was like 5 grocery stores,
yep,
and the
right,
kids would go roller skating every Friday, and there was a hardware store,
yep,
and this is a
yep,
place now where there's a gas station and 2 bars.
yep. And all those things were in Lafarge too. There was a lot more going on, and then in the little town of Rockton, which we'll talk about later. But Rockton had a lot of things going on: gas stations, stores, and post office, and just the community was really thriving before the dam.
And then the government came in and bought up all this land and really crushed all
the
these
economy.
small towns.
Yep, and we still suffer from that today. Our school, our little school is. My son's graduating next week, which is very exciting for me. My youngest son is graduating, but there's only like 15 kids in his class, and he's got a wonderful education, but the school struggles from numbers. And
Yep.
part of the reasons why we don't have those numbers is that those families were taken out of the community.
Yep.
And those people stopped shopping at stores, and because they weren't there, of course, and businesses started to fold up and suffer. Like even when I was a kid, like there was a lot more stores in Lafarge. We had a shoe store, we had a Chevy car dealership, we had appliance store, and those stores all went under after the dam ended, and those families were gone, and they weren't shopping in our community anymore. So there wasn't. So back to my dad, who moved here because the dam was being built, and there was going to be a big economic uprising, and then the dam got canceled. Then there was no work, and there was no lake to play on. So then now what do we do? So my dad...
And this is all happening, not to go too far into this topic, but this is all happening at the same time that the farming crisis is happening,
right,
which was a big economic driver for these small rural communities.
Yep.
And generally over the following several decades, this trend towards like factory-sized farming has continued putting this economic pressure on these small towns.
Yeah. Yep. So yeah, exactly right, Vicki. It was a tough time for the folks in the early 80s, and it was especially tough for my mom and dad because they had moved here. There wasn't a lot of people that had just moved here. There was people called Kickapoojans, right? And we weren't one of my mom and dad weren't one of them. I was, but they weren't.
Yeah.
And they were looked at differently in the stores. My mom will still tell you, like, the stores had well, in those days, everybody went to the store and they charged things. You had a charge account, and at the end of the month, you go in and pay your charge account. And my mom, with me as a little baby, was in the grocery store, and she wanted some garden seeds, a few dollars worth of garden seeds, and they wouldn't charge them to her. She had to put them back. And she didn't have the money to buy the garden seeds until my dad got paid from what he was doing, and she said, well, can I charge them? The lady says, well, no, you can't charge them. You're not from here.
Wow.
And
you're not from here.
Holding me as a little baby, she said.
And they're like, 100 miles away where they're from or whatever?
Right,
it's not very far.
No, they weren't from far away, no. And so they really had to build a life for us from the ground up, from absolutely nothing. And
with no support,
no family, no cell phone, no Google, no no credit cards, no bank account, no nothing. And
so how'd they get started?
So my dad worked for a group called the KVA. It was called Kickapoo Valley Association. It was a group put together for men and women that were out of work because there wasn't any work anymore. So that was a Kickapoo River cleanup crew. So basically they worked on the river, and they would cut trees, and they would do things, make little sitting areas and parks and things along the river. And it was a bunch of hippie dudes and enjoyed canoeing and cutting trees and living a really good life out there, and that's what we did my dad did that for a little while, and then since he was good at other things, he would build decks for people, or he would advertise, and he built chimneys. He did a lot of chimneys. There was a group in Lafarge at that time called Kickapoo Stoveworks Company. So they were building Kickapoo wood stoves. Paul Bader invented that stove, and it's still
Quality
used
stove.
today everywhere. If you have one, you don't ever want to get rid of it.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of wood burning folks here. We burned a lot of wood, so my dad built chimneys. He did masonry work, so he built chimneys, and he cleaned chimneys. And then in the summertime, he would build fence too for people. So he started building fence for farmers, and then he trapped. His passion was always trapping, hunting and trapping. And I was a little kid, and we would go trapping. Like we would go trapping in the winter and the fall, and then he would sell the furs in the spring, and that's where we made the bulk of our money. And then we moved out of that little abandoned house. Not abandoned because we lived there then, but around 1981, we rented a 40-acre farm on Jug Creek Road for $50 a month.
Wow.
And it had a well, and that was it, just a well, in an old broken down barn. And my dad come up with this trailer house, and they moved it up Jug Creek Road, and a man that I do a lot of work with yet today, Earl Nelson, he helped my dad with a bulldozer get that trailer into place.
Wow.
And that's where my little brother Amos was born.
Wow.
In that trailer in 1981. He was born at home. So that was something that, people, old people did. But in those days, you went to the hospital to have a baby, And
over there, the closest hospital is pretty far.
Yeah, pretty far, and the roads were pretty bad, and I'm sure our car was not very good, but that's how we got around. And so then we lived on that little farm, and my dad built this trapping shed, and that's where we would skin furs and put the furs up and things like that. And my mom got a job in town for Mark Katz at the Basket Tree, it was called at the time. And then she worked in town, and my dad kept on building fence and chimneys and raising us kids, my brother and I. And we had the best life on Jug Creek Road.
When you say in town, are you talking Rocktown or Lafarge?
Lafarge.
Okay.
Yep. So that town was Lafarge.
Yeah.
We went to town.
What was the height of Lafarge's population? Is it right now the highest it's ever been?
It's always been about 750 my whole life.
Okay, that's the comfort
zone. It goes up one or up down or up or down, but it's usually about 750. And so that's Jug Creek Road is the best life a young boy could have.
That's a beautiful place.
Yeah, I would head down the road on my bike, and I would catch frogs and ride bike and climb in the woods, and I could walk to my friend's house through the woods. My best friend was Adrian Messenberg. He lived on the ridge, and I would go up there, and they had a farm, and then so we'd mess around the farm. And I can just remember leaving in the morning to go just in the winter, be outside all day sledding, and
yes.
I would come in at noon, and my mom would have cinnamon toast and hot chocolate for me. And
beautiful.
And she would be cleaning the house or something, and she always wore an bandana over her head, like over her whole head, and she'd be drinking a Pepsi sometimes, and she'd share it with me. But yeah, I remember that. And we didn't have Jug Creek was such an amazing valley to grow up in. It's just a spur of Kickapoo Valley. It's the watershed, the Kickapoo Valley watershed, and little Jug Creek feeds into the Kickapoo River. But
I was looking at buying a property over there actually a few
Yeah.
years ago, and I was like, holy shit, man, this this particular spot in the Kickapoo Valley is so magical. Like, the views are unbelievable. It's so heavenly.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, it's really heavenly. And there was a few dairy farms on it at that time when we lived there, Yeah, it was just a great place to live. They accepted my family, my mom and dad in, Dave Mick and Kay Mick, who's still out there today. They would help my mom and dad, and they were just building this life, and my dad built fence, and he got to know all these folks. And and I remember there were some really hard days out there on Jug Creek Road too. We heated it with a wood stove, and my dad built this since he was a mason. He built this big rock chimney inside the trailer house, and we didn't have hot water, and so he put a milk can inside that chimney, and that's how we would heat the water behind the wood stove to run the. We had a little copper tube that ran from that milk can to the shower, and we had a drill pump, and he'd pull the drill and he'd put a matchstick in the trigger, and then that was how we would take a shower with that. In the summertime, we had a solar shower, so my dad had these big barrels up high on poles, and then he'd fill them up with water, and then you go out there and take a shower in the.
This is the incredible thing about people around here is like they're so incredibly resourceful, and they figure out just like really practical ways to live.
Yeah.
Where you can take care of yourself and you can take care of your family, and you don't have to depend on a functioning economy or the government or anything else.
Right. Yeah, we didn't depend on anybody. We didn't ask for help, and we'd have neighbors that would help them. When they built that chimney thing, a guy named Larry Chapman, who was a good friend of my mom and dad's, he came out and he could solder, so he soldered in the fitting to be able to put the pipe on, and just family and friends, and being resourceful and making a living out of nothing. There was nothing here, and we were making a living and living a really, really good life. I didn't know it then. I didn't know how hard it was. I thought it was fun, most of the time.
You were a kid.
I was a kid,
That's what you're supposed to think.
Yeah, we lived good, and
that's awesome. It sounds like the just poster example of like the American kid's dream life. Like, sounds really beautiful.
Yeah, we hunted for food, and we had a big garden, and my mom canned everything, and we would hunt, deer or squirrels and rabbits or pheasants or whatever, and then my dad would trap, and we'd sell fur, and
Well, I was thinking with the business model of like getting most of your income from trapping, which you get in the spring.
Right.
And then like winter is the hardest season,
Right.
Obviously. It's like deathly hard. And that's happening like kind of at the end of your previous year's income stream. And so I would imagine winters were really hard.
Winters were really hard, yep. Winters were longer here then, and colder, and a lot more snow, and our vehicles that we drove weren't as good, and real unreliable. And I was telling you, we heated that with a wood stove, and we didn't have a four-wheel drive, we didn't have a tractor, we didn't have any of these things, right? So I remember being me and my little brother and my mom, we'd be in the trailer, and my dad would get dressed up, and I remember watching him so many times. He would head out on snowshoes, hiking, pulling a sled with a chainsaw, and hike out to the woods to get us more firewood, And then I remember him, coming back with firewood, and how happy we were when he would come back, and we would haul the wood in the house, and then it was just such an amazing, he was such a beast of a man to be able to do those things, like to know that, to take care of us that way, and like he still has all that stuff. He has some snowshoes that he cut one time with the chainsaw when he was sawing wood in them, in those, and then he took a lot of time to play with us too, like since he was self-employed, so he had a lot of time to do really fun things with us, and there was this, we used to go sledding all the time, like sledding all the time, and he cleaned out this dry run ditch one time, and he packed all the corners, and it was like a downhill, like something from the Winter Olympics, like we would fly down this hill, and it was so much fun. And built us an igloo one time. It got this huge snowstorm, and it was the right snow, and he sawed and cut and made this huge igloo, and we would sit in there, and I always wanted to have a fire in it, and he's like, we can't have a fire in it, And so those are some really fun times on Jug Creek Road. But we had a couple of horses and things, and
when did they open the first shop?
1991. So I'll tell you quick though. About 1987, George Seaman and Harriet Behar came to the house. They were hippie friends, and they're like, "Hey, we're gonna start this thing called Crop. You think you want to grow some vegetables?" And my dad's like, "Well, yeah, I got this ground here, and I'll go buy a tractor. So we went and bought a little tractor, and we grew vegetables for crop, really before crop was a thing. And
Wow.
we'd go
For
around.
the listeners, crop is also known as Organic Valley.
Yeah, Organic Valley, but in the early days, it was cooperative regions of produce pools.
Coulee region.
Coulee Region Organic
Whoa.
Produce Pool. It's Coulee. I messed it all up. It's Coulee Region Organic Produce Pool. And my dad's like, hey, that sounds like something more here to do on the farm and not have to work out the farm. So we grew 7 acres of vegetables: cabbage, broccoli, cauliflower, watermelons, pumpkins, all corn.
And were you helping with all that?
I
at
would
that
help
point?
with all that. Yeah, my whole life I spent hoeing. We didn't use ag plastic in them days. It wasn't. We hoed everything. We hoed all the vegetables, and I for days in the summertime as a kid. Most kids were going swimming. I would get to go swimming, but after my 25 rows of cabbage were hoed out. So we did that, and my dad would always tell me, he'd be like, man, we grow 7 acres of vegetables, and we only sell 2 or 3 acres at the premium price, and then the organic consumer, they don't want the rest of them because they're too big, or they got a dent, or they got a mark, but they're just as good. We need to find a second or a third dairy market for these vegetables. And he would, and it became to him, it was like we're wasting too much. We're wasting all these really good vegetables.
Doesn't fit with those resourceful values.
Right. It didn't fit in his mind. Like, what's wrong with a zucchini that's 10 inches long and they want one that's 6 inches long? You know what I mean? And they'll grow 18 inches long if you just let them grow. And that's
I just have to interrupt really quick to tell this wonderful story. It was like when I first moved here, and I came here from a city, so I just like living in a rural community was new to me, and I found everyone to be fascinating. And I went to the IGA and was in Caston.
Yep.
Was getting a cucumber or zucchini actually, and I got the biggest one.
Yeah.
And my husband asked me, like, why do you get such a big one? And I was like, bigger is always better.
Right.
And then the woman behind the counter goes, well, it depends on what you're talking about.
That's funny.
Okay,
Just trying
sorry.
to get your most value for your dollar.
Exactly.
I know.
I have another story to tell, actually. Well, never mind. I'm not going to tell it. It was about zucchini and Amish stand. But, okay, go on. Let's hear more about
So
your
anyway,
zucchini.
so my dad also is always passion for, he wanted to be a trapper, wanted to figure out how to make it.
Did he solve this second produce problem?
No,
second?
it's still...
There was no solution. There still is no solution.
Still is no solution today.
There's still all this beautiful organic food that's just like going to waste because it has a dent in it.
Yeah, because it's a dent, or it's dirty, or it had a mark on it, or it was too big, or it was too small. There's always something wrong with it, and there was only a very small portion of what you actually produce is saleable.
It doesn't have the right social media profile.
Right. It doesn't have the right social media profile. So that was me at 13 years old sitting along the street selling sweet corn,
Uh-huh.
And, so the vegetables, we did vegetables, and my dad's, like I said, always into fur, wanted fur, and he just hated the idea of selling all the fur to the Canadian fur auction and just getting what we get for it. So we would have, 300 beavers or whatever it was, and all your fur went to this market auction and got sold, and you just got to check.
Just in bulk.
Yeah, in bulk, and you never, you didn't have the opportunity to get more for it. Right?
Yeah.
And we couldn't afford it. We couldn't afford to hold it until there was a better market, right?
Right.
So we just had to sell it to move on. So my dad's like, we should do something more with this. We should do something here in the valley, in the Kickapoo Valley with it. We should do something. And so he made a fur hat, and he still has it. And he wore that hat everywhere, And so then he started making some hats and things, selling one or two here or there. And he's like, you know what? We're not going to do the vegetables. Not yet, but we're still doing vegetables. We're doing all these things, right? We're just spread super thin. And it was about 1990. We bought a little store building that they could live in the back and have a store in the front in Rockton, Wisconsin. And we paid $18,000 for it, which is still crazy amount of money for us.
Yeah.
The owners sold it to my mom and dad on a land contract. And my dad's like, we're going to start making a few of these hats and do the vegetable thing and on, right? And so he started making hats, and he made up a bunch of hats. And my grandpa Clarence, his dad, was sick with cancer. And my mom and my brother and my dad and I were all together. Not my dad. My dad was with him in the hospital, but he died on Christmas Eve.
Wow.
And I can still remember him calling, And and so then we'd made up enough hats to head up to a show in Eagle River, Wisconsin, after my grandpa had passed away and died. He died on Christmas Eve. And this was about February of 1991. And oh man, it's tough.
Man.
And we were going, and my dad's like, we're going to go do this show. Zach, you come with me. I was about 12 years old. And we loaded up the old Chevy truck we had, and my mom and brother stayed home because they had to keep wood in the stove, keep the place warm. And we headed out for Eagle River, which I'd never been. It's a long ways away. And we saw a red-tailed hawk hunting. And my dad said, "That's your grandpa?"
Mm.
We're going to make it.
Mm.
And so
You've got the red-tailed hawk on your arm.
yeah. So we made it to Eagle River, and we set up a tent to camp in the winter, in February, at a winter rendezvous called Klondike Days. And it was so cold. We had a Basset Hound dog named Flash with us from the Dukes of Hazzard show. And so we set up the tent, and we got the kerosene heater going in there and everything. And we woke up in the morning. We had a can of Campbell soup on the top of that kerosene heater, and it was still froze solid. It was
wow.
So cold. Yeah, so me and my dad and my dog Flash, we slept in this big trapping sleeping bag.
Oh, wow.
A trapper's one, And we set up our lath in the snowbank in the morning, and we started selling hats. And it started snowing. And it snowed like I'd never seen it snow. And I remember at the end of that day, we'd sold enough hats. We'd made $1,000 in real money because there wasn't credit cards and all that stuff. And my dad says, "We're going to go downtown. We're going to get a steak dinner. We're going to get a motel room. And we're going to call your mom." And we went down and did all those things. I laid out all that money on the bed. I'd never seen so much money,
Wow.
We dried out the hats. We sold hats the next day and packed up the truck and headed home. And I didn't know it, but we didn't have enough gas money to get home if we wouldn't have sold anything. And my dad said, "This is what we're going to do now. We're going to we're going to start this business. Call it Elsheimer Fur Company. After his great grandpa Butch.
Mm.
And we renamed it Wild Things.
It's got a nice ring to
Because
it.
my mom and dad were rockers, you know.
It's a good reason too.
Yeah, yeah. And so then and we stopped producing vegetables and we focused on Wild Things. And Wild Things was new and crazy adventure that no one in the whole world had ever seen. And I mean,
it still is to this day.
Yeah, I mean, we are so rare out there in the world that, I mean, there's just so few of us that do the kind of things that Wild Things does. And we traveled and we do shows, and my dad trapped, and we tanned fur, and we made fur hats, and then we sold more fur hats than we could harvest ourselves. And so then he started buying fur, and you know, and the business has just been thriving every day since. And
even before the online world.
Even before the online world. And the online world before that was us loading up in whatever vehicle we had and driving to a show in downtown Minneapolis or South St. Paul or Chicago. We used to go to the McCormick Center. I mean, and growing up as a kid from the Kickapoo Valley, I loved going to shows.
Mm-hmm.
Me and my dad would load up in the car, and we would head for a show, and we would see that red-tailed hunting hawk, and he would tell us, you know, give us some direction, right? That's how we lived our lives, with direction from the hawk. And
wow, really?
Yeah, and I still do that today. Like, it helps me make decisions and understand if I'm in the right place at the right time, and he'll warn me or show me something that's coming up in down the road, whether it be an accident or a police officer running radar if I'm speeding.
You see the red-tailed hawk?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yep, he guides us through all our adventures.
Wow.
So very.
Does your family have any Native American roots? You don't know?
We don't know.
I mean, sounds like it.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't really know anything about it, but it sounds like it.
We got red hair and freckles. I don't know, but I don't know. You know.
But your dad wasn't like taught that, like what he just understood that when he saw the hawk or what? Yeah.
Yeah. That day on the way to Eagle River, we recognized that hawk and let him lead us ever since. You know.
And he's never steered you wrong.
No.
Wow.
No. And so I would go, we would do shows, you know, where we would sell at craft fairs or deer hunting shows or anything that we could sell a fur hat at, we would try to go sell one. And we sold a lot of them. You know, I remember going to Door County to Fish Creek, and one time I'll tell you, one time we were going over to my grandpa Clarence. Had given us this car before he died, you know, that was an old Iowa State Patrol car that he bought on the government auction, and that was his fishing car. And then we didn't have a car, so he gave it to us, and that's what we used to take to a lot of these shows. And it was a Ford LTD, you know, it was white, it was Iowa State Patrol car, and we would drive it to shows. And we got a flat tire on the way to the show, and so then we jacked it up and changed the tire, and we got to the show in Fish Creek on Lake Michigan, cold fall day, craft fair. Rain, not raining, but cold, like right on the lake, so it was cold. And my dad's like, you know, I should probably go find another tire so we have a good tire to go home on. And he goes, you stay here and sell stuff, you know. I said, okay. I was about 12, you know, 13, something like that. And I remember selling hats and ski bands and earmuffs, and my dad come back from that getting that tire, and I remember reaching in my front pockets and pulling out just big handfuls of cash, you know what I mean? Because that's how everything was done. We didn't have, you know, we took checks and got cash, you know. It wasn't credit cards.
That had to feel so good.
It was amazing. And my dad saw I was just glowing, just holding those big wads of cash, you know, as this 13-year-old kid, and people were handing me, you know, $50 bills or
It's
whatever.
like reaching into your pocket and pulling out a fistful of candy. It's
Right.
like, look at this.
Right. It was exactly what we needed to buy some new tires when we got home, to keep moving
Man.
forward, to keep going forward in the fur business,
Were there ever shows that weren't successful where you didn't go home with a wad of cash?
Oh, yeah.
And
Lots
were
of
those
them.
like hard to get through? I mean, did you feel defeated after those?
One thing, my dad's never feels defeated.
That's amazing.
Never. Which is pretty inspirational for me. I don't think I ever feel defeated either. I mean, he raised me to be just like him, and just to, my dad would always say, can't never did nothing. And that's, it's how we do it. I'm the same way. Can't never did nothing. You can't never did nothing, so that means you do it. You just do it. Whatever it is. Whatever you're doing, do it, and do it as best you can. And
What if you don't want to do it?
well, I don't know. I've never not wanted to do it, I guess.
There you go. I mean, like, you really follow your heart. I'm interested in finding this kind of like healthy balance between like you just do what needs to be done, but also like choose to create a life where the things that need to be done are the things that you enjoy doing.
Right. And that's what I've been really lucky to do here.
Yeah.
Like the fur business has been amazing. And although I'm not really, I mean, I still am part of the fur business. I'm still a Biermann, and I still go out and do shows. And, but in 1995, when I graduated from high school, I worked for a little sawmill over in Hillsboro for one summer, and I worked for my dad here and there. And then I applied for a maintenance job at Organic Valley. And, of course, I had the connection from in 1988 when I was a little kid, but I had to apply for the job, and there was a process to go through to get for the job, And I'll tell you quickly, when I was I went to school in Lafarge. So I was born and raised in Lafarge. I went to preschool in Lafarge all through my senior year, graduated from high school. But in high school, there was a teacher there. His name was Mr. Hooker, and he didn't mess around. You called him Mr. Hooker. To this day, he lives across the street from me. I will call him Mr. Hooker. And he has been my teacher in 25 plus years. You know what I mean? But he demanded respect. He wore a tie, and you did things by the book. And he had a test on his. Every year we did a test, and we laid out hand tools on the table, okay? And he labeled the tools, and you had to name those tools, the correct name, not a slang name, not what your dad called them, not what you thought they were. You called them what they were. And one of those tools on that table was called a sliding T-bevel. And you had to call it a sliding T-bevel. Okay, so then, a few years later, my job interview at Organic Valley, they lay out 5 hand tools on the table.
No way.
Yeah. Yeah, they did. And one of those tools was a sliding T-bevel. And I, 18-year-old kid with flat top haircut and my shoes on, because nobody wore shoes there then. I was the only one out of 5 men that they interviewed for the job that named the hand tools correctly, and that's why they hired me for the job.
Wow. Hell yes.
Pretty sick, right?
Yes.
I mean, it's just a matter of, like, seeing everything goes, like, full circle, right? Like, that tool was named to me and drilled into me in high school for me to see at my job interview, which I still work for Organic Valley today, 27 years later. So that's a whole nother podcast probably, but I mean, I've had the most amazing opportunities at Organic Valley to live and work and grow a family in this little tiny community. We're in the Kickapoo Valley, where I was born and raised. My kids went to school in the same classrooms where I went to school. And amazing Organic Valley gives me this flexibility to be able to head down the hill to see my kids if I need to, or stay home if I need to, or really.
Yeah.
I mean, it's been such an amazing opportunity to live and grow. And I was on the fire department for 20 years, and I became an officer.
Sweet.
And I could leave to go on fire calls and rescue people or save people. Or, I was a lieutenant officer there. And all those opportunities were because of my dad pulling into town, settling in this little community, growing with the community. And then Organic Valley settling in the community and growing with the community and seeing the need for good people to be able to be flexible and get everything done, right? And to help.
To have a whole life.
Yeah.
A holistic life.
Yeah, have a whole life of work-life balance and volunteering and giving in and giving and giving and being part of the community and my kids being raised here, and everybody knows them. Everybody knows me. Everybody knows what we're doing, and that's okay.
Oh, it's so nice. It's so nice that people like you exist. It's like anytime I need to know who to call for what, I can just call Zach, and he'll know the answer.
Yeah, I mean, I try. I guess I don't even have to try hard.
No,
anymore,
all you have to do is be you.
It's just how I am, right?
Well, that's what's so beautiful. It's a really inspiring example, I think, because I think that everyone's greatest gift to the world is just themselves. And most of us, myself included, haven't really found, I don't know, the courage or the conditions or the inspiration or whatever it is to just really just settle into being ourselves. But and I'm convinced that it's the best that we can give the world, because the moments when I'm able to tap into it are definitely the moments where I'm able to really give the most back to the world,
Right.
And when you can just operate from that space daily, you're just giving yourself to the world. It's so beautiful, and you do that very well.
Well, thank you. I try. My dad also used to say, treat people the way you want to be treated. And so I try to treat people as well as I can. I like to make people's lives easier, and I like to really help. And you can't always help, but sometimes, that was one of the most rewarding things about being a fireman. I remember one time I was on a fire call, and everything was kind of going to shit, things progress very quickly, and the fire chief at the time from Viola, so we were on a mutual aid call, he said something to me that was really inspirational. It really made me think about how to keep your head on straight when things are bad. And I remember I can't do it, but he would squat down, and smoke cigarettes.
Mm-hmm. When he got stressed?
Always. Always. And he took and everything, people were kind of panicking, and he just took this long, slow drag off his cigarette, And they're like, aren't you going to hurry? Aren't you going to do this, do that? And he says to me, the team, because we're an officer team there, kind of meet, he goes, listen, we didn't cause any of this. But now that we're here, it's only going to get better.
Wow.
So calm down, take a moment, and let's put this fire out. But we're not going to do it in a panic.
Oh, good Lord.
So
holy shit, that should be a line in a superhero movie.
And he's absolutely right. We didn't cause it. And if we wouldn't have came, it will get worse. And now that we are here, it's going to get better. It's going to get better.
Wow.
So.
Wow.
Yep. I was on the fire call when the Organic Valley caught on fire, and I
Was
wasn't
it
at
2013, 14?
Yeah, I wasn't here for the call to come in, and I remember we were in Black Earth selling a camper to a family or whatever, and my dad called and he's like, "Where's Cammie? Where's Cammie?" And I'm like, "I don't know. She's with me. Why?" She goes, "Oh, Organic Valley's burning down." And I'm like, "What?" And he's like, "Yeah, it's on fire. It's burning down." So I remember coming home and being nervous, and then sure enough, getting phone calls and reports on the way home, and I just got home and I put my fire gear on and we went up there and went to work, and I was in charge of accountability, where I started, keeping track of who was where and what they were doing,
Wow.
and yeah, that was something else to live through that, and
You all worked all through the night, didn't you?
yeah, for days, to make sure that it was out and get computers out and get equipment out and get, so that the IT department could start cleaning up the computers and wiping off the software and putting on new hard drives, and so people could go to work the next day. In a little tent up there by the headquarters, when the fire was still being put out, there was people relocating milk to be delivered and farm checks being written to be paid. Farmers need to be paid, and it's been one of the most amazing things to live through at Organic Valley, being part of that. Not just the fire, but just the resourcefulness of the company and the people that work there. We all have a never say die attitude, where it just, if it needs to be done, it gets done. And it gets done, well, as far as I'm concerned, what I mean? Things get done. We always marched ahead in the early days when the company was small. I did everything under the sun, when I hired into maintenance. And, that meant you did everything.
Yeah.
You helped clean. I should tell you, the most inspirational person in Organic Valley in the early days for me was a guy named Wayne Peters. And Wayne and I were like the same dudes. But I was 18,
Oh my
and
God.
he was like, at that time, probably 45, 50 years old,
Oh my God.
But
This is
we
hilarious
weren't-
to imagine.
We weren't the stereotype crop people.
Yeah.
We weren't the hippies.
But it's weird that you said your parents were hippies, because I'm having a hard time imagining your parents as hippies.
My parents were hippies. Yeah, I don't know.
And you're not
But
at
I'm
all.
not. No, I wasn't. I was different. I was a motorhead.
You were Wayne
I liked
Peters.
hot rods and motors and tractors and equipment and lawnmowers and
Equipment.
four-wheelers and dirt bikes and
Big stuff, loud
big,
stuff,
loud
dirty
stuff, dirty stuff, and I couldn't even grow a beard till I turned 40, and
Wow.
now I have this beard that people think's amazing. I don't know.
It is amazing. You look like that lion on your
I look
arm.
like the lion, I'm the Leo the lion.
It's you.
I got that new this year, my adventure compass. I'm into.
Does a Leo guide you too?
I don't know if he guides me so much, but being a Leo, I don't know much about.
I'm a Leo.
Yeah?
Hell yeah, dude.
Amazing.
Yeah.
I don't know. I like being a Leo.
I fucking love it. I'm just learning how to really love it.
Yeah.
Because I used to be kind of afraid of all the Leo qualities. I used to be kind of ashamed of them and afraid
Yeah.
of them, and I would kind of try to hide them in myself. And
Right.
I'm just discovering that I fucking love them about me.
Yeah.
And so I'm gonna share them with the world, and I hope other people like them too. But if they don't, at least I feel good being me.
Yeah, I like being a Leo. I like knowing what I want and taking it,
It's funny to hear you say. I feel like. Sorry, the mouse is. Anyway,
doing the thing.
I feel like. Yeah, you're this. It's funny to hear you say that you just see what you want, you take it, because you're also extremely generous.
Yeah.
you don't.
Right.
Just
I
take
give
shit.
I give a lot.
Yeah.
I'm a
so,
giver.
Okay, I'm curious to ask this to anyone who's a giver, and I've been investigating my own tendencies and all that. Like, how do you balance being a giver and not burning out?
Well, that's the problem. That is a big problem because I feel burned out a lot.
Yeah.
I do feel burned out a lot, and I don't want to like stop giving either, and I don't want to stop taking.
Good.
so,
Don't.
so in order to take, you have to give, and you give through, working for people, making money, making extra money, so you can have things that you want in your life, whether it be experiences or things or food or like a lifestyle. It's all part of it, right? And it's all a balance. But I hope I don't burn out. I feel burned out a lot. Some days you feel, you just feel like, God, I give all the time and then I don't get nothing back. But then you'll get something back and then you'll feel all refueled again, and ready to give and give and give. And
I find that the hard part is allowing myself to receive care,
yep.
whether it's from myself or from someone else. It's
Right.
just like, I seem to have some resistance, which I'm sure is just covering up at some subconscious belief that somehow I don't deserve this care, or
Right.
somehow I'm a burden on them if they're going to use their time to do that, or
Yep.
something like that.
I kind of feel the same way, Vicky. And like you said earlier, like you were taking your breath before we started this, like I don't even take that time a lot of times to take a moment for myself to just take a breath,
Yeah. It's a good way to start.
It's a good way to start. It is a really good way to start. It's a good way to live your life. Take a moment, take a thought,
What would you I'm impressed by the way you live your life. I feel like you have a life that allows you to stay true to your principles and like really live with integrity and have a lot of meaningful connections, which I feel like is what most people are looking for. And I'm curious how you do that.
Well, I don't even know. It's just how I live.
What has growing up in this area, how has that shaped the way you live your life today? Like, what have you learned from this type of culture and environment and people and experiences you've had?
Well, obviously growing up poor helped me become more resourceful and more thankful for things. And then growing up in a small community where everybody knows what you're doing and knows what your name, I always want to leave a really good image and lasting impression on people when I meet with you or work for you or just whatever, right? Like I always want you to think highly of me and my family, like it's really important to me to be thought highly of. And I never I don't like controversy. I always like everybody to be happy at the end of the day. And that's not always easy.
Sometimes controversy can be healthy.
It could be. I didn't say it was unhealthy. I don't like
You
it.
just don't want to be around it.
I don't like it. No, I like to run away from it, actually.
Live in peace.
Live in peace. I like to live in peace. I like to live happy. I like to laugh a lot. I like to tell funny stories and jokes and things, but
I feel like we need to start a stand-up comedy open mic at the bar in Lafarge.
oh, I could never do that.
No, come on. Please, if I do it, will you do it?
No. Maybe I'll have to
You'd be
have a
so
few,
good
I'm gonna
at
have to
it.
have a few drinks.
That's all right. We can manage.
I've never even done karaoke, and I like to sing.
Karaoke is way different. Well, okay, karaoke. I'll take karaoke then if you like to sing.
No, I like to sing, but I've never done karaoke either.
Okay, well, next time I see you there, I know what to do.
Amos, no, he likes to sing and play the music, and
All right.
he's our musician in the family. Yeah, starting in Organic Valley when I was so young, so amazing. The the fact, with the sliding T-bevel, getting that job, Wayne Peters taking me under his wing.
What'd you learn from Wayne Peters?
Wayne Peters taught me that you never say never. You never die, like just same as my dad. My dad never give up. He never quit. He never said can't. Wayne Peters was the same way. He would come to work in the morning with a van, and he'd be like, "We're gonna tear down that fucking wall right there." And we'd be like, "Why?" And he'd be like, "'Cause they want it tore down." And we would tear it down. And tomorrow would be Tuesday, and he would come and he'd be like, "We're gonna take out the lawn and we're gonna put a sidewalk in there." And he'd be like, "Well, why?" And he'd be like, "'Cause they want it done." And so we would put in a sidewalk, and in the very first few weeks at Organic Valley, I didn't fit in at all. I mean, I was really young. I was just 18, and I didn't fit the bill, and a few people there, they wanted to get rid of me. They're like, "He's not working out. He's not going to work out."
Why?
I don't know. I don't know. I just I didn't fit. I was such a different fit. I was so different than the rest of the crew at Organic Valley and Wayne Peters says, "Just leave that kid alone. He's going to be great." And you let him work with me then. If you don't like him, you let him work with me. And so that's what they did. I worked with Wayne every day, and we tore things down, and we built things back, and we did crazy plumbing jobs, and we just did anything the company needed. And because we didn't have any money, and Wayne had the ability, and so we just did it, just ramrodded through everything, and just we rented the business was growing a little bit, and we needed a little more room. We rented that Kickapoo Valley Stoveworks building that had went out of business. And so then we went in there, and there was still stuff from the stove business there, and we cleaned it up. And he's like, "We're going to build a cooler." And I'm like, "Well, why?" And he says, "They want us to build a cooler." Like, who is they all the time? Like, how? And they were like, "Why are we building it this way?" It's like, "That's what they said we needed to do," and there was no they.
The whole time it was just Wayne.
It was just Wayne, and it was just Wayne and his amazing ability to see the future and the needs that were going to come and that we didn't even know about yet, and we built coolers from scratch out of plywood and rafters, and he'd be like, "Yep, they engineered it." I was like, "Well, where's the engineers anyway?" It wasn't any. You just did it, and you did it, and you did it, and we all pitched in and we worked together, and we built coolers, and then, man, I remember seeing that first cooler we built. It was like 40 feet wide and 80 feet long, and it was the biggest cooler. I was like, there is no way we're going to put enough product into that cooler to fill it up, and it was instantly overfull.
Wow.
And the company, in the late 90s, the company was growing so fast, and everything, I just did everything under the sun there. I did all the, we automated the cheese cutting and the weighing, and we got a metal detector, and we got an automatic labeler, and I used to go and help purchase those pieces of equipment or learn how to fix them or order parts for them and keep it running and open cheese and clean the floors or drive the egg truck or fix the egg truck or go get it if it was stuck, go figure out how to get it out. One time they tipped an egg truck over full of eggs, and we had to go out there and clean it all up and get the eggs out of the box. And
what a mess.
What a mess, man. 8,800 dozen eggs. This thing was upside down on the hill. Luckily, no one was hurt, and we got it back up and running. And then I would drive the egg truck and, go to Hartwig's down by Johnson Creek. I was just this 20-year-old kid, and just did anything and everything to make sure that the things were done, and done well. And well wasn't always it was as good as we could do,
Yeah.
And it's all that mattered, and Wayne led me that direction. He taught me that, to get it done, whatever way you can, get it done, and look people in the eye and give them straight answers, and look them in the eye and you tell them I'll do it. I can do that. No problem. even if you can't.
I can't remember like specifically what it would be, but I can feel like you've looked at me and said that before. Like
Yeah.
I can do that, no
I
problem.
can.
and I'm like, how does he already know he can do that?
Because I know I can do it.
That's amazing.
Yeah, I try to raise my son that way, Bo. He mows lawns and things, and I tell him, I'm like, you tell people I can do that. I can do it today. And then if you don't know how to do it, you come find me and we'll figure it out, like.
But he never talks to me. Only you do.
No, he doesn't talk much. He's not like me. He's raised in a different world where there's.
Yeah, that's true.
It's really unfortunate and fortunate all at the same time. They live with a lot of technologies, kids today, and I worry about them and how they're gonna make it when they don't know how to have conversations with people. But
yeah, the human connection factor is pretty concerning.
yeah, it's really concerning, and especially when we live in this tight little community like we do, but he's gonna be fine.
Of course.
You know what I mean? Like he's amazing. I've raised him to be just like me, and he just doesn't talk that much yet. So
Yeah,
I hope he comes out of that shell. But
I had a question I want to ask you.
okay.
What do you think the most common struggles are that people in rural communities face?
Well, I can't speak for every rural community. Right off the top of my head, what I see happening to my community is there's a growing drug problem. And it scares me, because like it's not simple drug. I mean, I don't know all about what kind of drugs is being made and sold and done,
But what kind of drugs are you talking about?
I think like meth.
Yeah.
I think it's meth. They're making meth. They're doing meth. They're doing, like regular marijuana, and that stuff is totally, safe and okay in my opinion.
Plants that grow out of the
Plants that
ground.
grow out of the ground. It's these chemically made drugs, and there's people that I know that are my friends that are addicted to this stuff that I don't, I don't see them doing it, but like in the grocery store, I grew up with this guy, and I know he's on some bad drugs, and I see it in my community, and I think it's a real struggle everywhere, and maybe a lot worse than here.
What do you think?
But that's the most
helps people?
concerning thing about that.
What do you think the solution is? What do you think? What do you think would help people either not get into that and to begin with, or what can they do once they do get into it?
I don't know. That's a really.
Why do people go down that path?
Well, I think they go down that path because either the safer drugs that they're normally doing get more expensive or harder to get. I don't know. And they
It all comes
try
back to
something,
money.
and it's so addictive,
Yeah.
I think that, I don't know, like, I don't want to judge people. I don't.
Yeah, I don't
I
either.
don't. I don't want to judge you. I don't want to judge why you got where you're at, and I don't. All I know is, like, I try to be really open and honest with my kids and family about this stuff, and
Listen, I heard someone. Sorry to interrupt you, but I just want to share. I heard someone, heroin user, say
yeah.
that the first time they tried heroin, that it felt like a warm hug,
right,
and that it was the first time in their life
right,
that they had experienced that comfort of a warm hug.
right,
And like, how could you possibly blame someone for
Right.
wanting to feel that?
right. And I see these folks that I know that are addicted to these powerful drugs that they haven't had such a great life. A lot of them were abused as kids. Couldn't get out of a rut, right? And,
Yep.
and I agree with you. I think they probably find some comfort in that drug
They
to start with.
absolutely do.
And they needed it, and it felt good, and then it ruins their life even more than they know, And I feel sorry for them folks, Very glad that I haven't experienced, I haven't done that stuff, and I haven't had to, help my children through anything like that. Hope I never do, or anybody that's really close to me, But so I feel that's the biggest struggle in these small communities. Um, Other than that, we get the best life out here.
I was just thinking the same thing. I was like, it is pretty good life,
You know what I mean?
actually.
We lived through a pandemic, plenty of work, plenty of food, plenty of fun. You know, we social distanced. We had campfires. We went on Jeep rides.
We went
horseback riding. We went to farmers market. We went to Amish food stands. We grew a garden. We mowed grass. We worked. We sold online. We bought online. We get the mail delivered just like everybody else. And we had plenty of toilet paper.
It's a good life. It's a real good life.
It's a really good life. You know, I love traveling and adventure. I live this pretty cool adventure lifestyle where I go dirt bike riding and I ride snowmobile and I go adventure truck camping and I camp and I, travel for work. And, man, there is just no place like coming home to the Kickapoo Valley. You know, like this place is so special to me and to everybody that lives here. You know, we get all the seasons, like Vicky was saying earlier. Right now, it's just exploding green. We're getting this amazing, gentle rain today, and it's 65 degrees. We're sitting on our porch and drinking tea, and the mushrooms are popping, the morel mushrooms, which people go bananas for, which I can't even find one, but they're out there. And I think since we've sat down here this morning, the trees have gotten greener, don't you, Vicky?
I think they have.
And more leaves on them.
Yeah.
I mean, I just looked over at the woods, and I think the woods are thicker now than they were an hour ago.
For real. It's incredible. I'm curious, Zach, like what comes to mind when you think about people who live their whole lives in a city like Chicago? Like, what do you want to share with them that you've learned from life in this beautiful Kickapoo Valley that they probably haven't experienced in Chicago?
Silence. Just a gentle silence and something else that being quiet, being dark.
What do you mean by that?
By the light, like not being
Like not having city lights and
not in the city lights all the time and the constant hustle and bustle of the city. Also, something that people in Chicago don't do is say hello to someone on the street. They don't wave to a random car that you don't even know and tell them good morning with a simple gesture of raising your hand. That's something we do here. You'll get waved at. You won't know
I was
why.
amazed and I grew up in Austin, Texas, which is known for being a really friendly place. And I grew up expecting to say hi to the people on the street. But I never waved to someone in my car before. Like when I'm driving by someone, and when I moved out here, like people drive by me and they would wave, and I was like, "What? That's so nice."
Right. It is nice, and it makes you feel accepted, and it makes you feel comfortable and safe.
Yeah.
Like, hey, I know that person. She waved at me yesterday. And then
That's
you see
really
them in the
interesting.
bank, and you say, hello, what's your name? And
I love that you use the word safe. I'm learning so much right now about like this
Yeah.
experience of safety for our nervous system and how much it changes, the way we experience the world, the way we interact with people.
Yep.
And that's one of the things that social media is lacking are these cues, safety cues, which are like body language, your tone of voice,
Yeah.
like whether or not you're smiling when you say hi. Like
Right.
you don't get all that in a text message.
You don't get in a text message.
And those are the things that make people feel safe and make
Yep.
people feel like they're in relationship with each other.
Right.
And I really hope someone can solve that with social media. Like, how
Right.
can we add these cues of safety
right.
to this digital exchange of
Right.
information?
We do it with LOL or
Yeah. Emojis.
emojis.
I mean, emojis
It
are a step in
does
the right
help.
direction. It does help.
it
Add a little
does.
smiley face.
That's right. A little heart or a little smiley face. Or
I'm
kissy
all about the
face,
emojis.
Or
I
a
love
sad
emojis.
face. Yeah, I know. I didn't know nothing about them. I didn't know what they. I was like, what is an emoji? And then the kids are like, oh, it's this little smiley face, Dad. And I was like, oh, I don't know. But yeah, you're right. Feel safe and you feel comfortable. And I mean, I don't take the keys out of my vehicle. I don't lock my doors and never had anything stolen, never had anything taken, never had anybody come in the house that I didn't know. And So yeah, I mean,
It's a nice way to live.
it's a good way to live.
The like, what do I want to call them? I feel like the values, like America's greatest values, like resourcefulness and independence and community together at the same time. Like that you rely on yourself, but you work together as a community. You know what I mean? Like this unique combination where it's not too far extreme or one or the other. I feel like all of those values are just so alive and well here.
Yeah.
And it's so encouraging.
Right.
And that's one of the reasons I'm so happy to just do this podcast episode. Is like for people that live in cities and they don't understand that, they just like, I don't know. They don't see that people are still living this way,
Right.
honestly.
Right.
They just like on Netflix all the
Yep.
time or whatever, social Twitter, and they don't know that actually it's possible still today to live on a piece of land, meet all of your own needs, be friends with the people around you, just like live in community and have a good time and don't have all this stress. I have to tell you, Zach, I don't know if I showed you about this wellness center project I was about to start. Did I send you the link for it?
Yeah.
I just last week or a few days ago or something realized that I don't want to do it at all.
Well, that's good.
It was like, it was a really, really beautiful project, and we had a totally solid business plan that
Yeah.
I'm sure would have made a lot of money.
Right.
But I was just like, it's gonna be a lot of like stress and a lot. I'm gonna be like, I have to deal with millions of dollars, and I don't want to. And like,
Right.
I just want to live in these beautiful hillsides and like do my own thing and
Yeah.
not worry about much more.
Yeah. Right.
And I'm
There's
so
something
happy about
really
it.
special about that.
Like when you really find your own sense of silence.
Right.
Was that the word you used earlier?
Right. Silence. Right. Yeah.
It's like that inner silence where like, I just feel like at home with
Right.
this lifestyle.
Right.
I don't need more. I don't need faster. I don't need bigger or shinier or whatever. Like everything I need is right here.
One time I met this man and woman. I ride motorcycle a lot. So I was at this lookout looking at the Mississippi River. I was on this really cool motorcycle. And so that was always easy to start conversations with because like I like to talk to people anyway.
Yeah,
I'm genuinely interested in people, all forms of people, right? And there was this man and a woman on another motorcycle similar to mine. And so we started talking about the motorcycles. And I was like, oh, yeah, I do this and I work at Ring Valley. And, oh, that's cool, And I was like, what do you guys do? And he goes, well, I worked for this big corporation for all these years. And it burned me out. And now I just work at a hardware store.
Nice.
And he goes, I have this basic job and I make enough money to ride that motorcycle and take her out to dinner. And that's all we do now. Like we don't have this crazy life, And that was at a point in my life when I was like really trying to find some direction, right? And like this guy's like, we just stopped doing all the hard stuff. We stopped doing all the stressful stuff.
Yeah.
And he goes, I get people nails and I help them pick out a hammer. Well, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
Not that being a hardware store owner or working there isn't, I'm sure he was really, and I don't mean to downplay
Sure, it's a
that
lot
at
of work.
all, right? It's a lot of work.
But it's about living a simple life.
Yeah, he like completely, instead of like dealing with millions of dollars and super stressed out 7 days a week.
And having to prove a bunch of shit to
Yeah,
people.
prove
That's what
shit,
I was like,
right.
I feel like all these businesses where it's a bunch of people go around trying to prove a bunch of shit to other people, and I'm like, I don't want to prove anything to anyone anymore ever again.
Right. That's right. I totally agree with Vicky that there's something really magical about being simple.
Well, and then I'm always looking for like cues or like feedback in my environment to see if I'm on the right track.
Yeah.
So like right now, I'm describing to you this type of life that I want to live, which is very like simple and doesn't involve a lot of money or big plans or big whatever. And I'm like on my porch and everything around me is alive. Like there's so much life. And I feel that life like in my body. I don't feel it being like sucked away to some like investor conference bullshit.
Right.
I don't
Cement
know.
warrior. Right? Yeah, that's right. Yeah, you get to do what you do and
it feels good. Like it feels life-giving. It
Right.
feels like natural and healthy.
Yeah. It's because it is.
Yeah.
It is healthy.
It is.
And not to downplay anybody's life and what their hopes and dreams are. You know, some people want to be the head of a big corporation or the head of a big, you know, that's their dream, and they should get it. They should live your dream. Everybody should live their own dream, and
I'm so glad that there are people that want to do that job.
yeah,
because
somebody's got to do it.
Somebody's got to do it.
I'm not gonna.
I wish like a few more people were willing to be president or something. But
Yeah.
it'd
Right.
be nice to have
And we could
a few
have a
more
better
people to choose from.
president.
But whatever.
That's
That's another thing that's nice about living out here is like you really don't have to pay attention to
No.
anything like that.
no, we're not.
I mean, everyone should go vote and all that shit, but you could also just get by without even noticing what's going on.
yeah, we're really lucky, very, very lucky that way to live really unaffected by the rest of the world. If
Yeah.
you want to be.
If you want to be.
If you want to be, you know, if you want to be political and you want to go to town and you want to just do things that make you happy, you can.
Yeah.
But you don't have to.
You don't have to. That's the key. You
Right.
don't have to.
Yeah, we live in an area is very much accepting of all forms of humans now. That like when
Was it always like that?
No, like I started with,
Yeah,
you know, we weren't.
you didn't fit in
The
in the
Valley
beginning.
they didn't really accept people for who they were. And
Do you really feel like now they're accepting all forms of humans?
I do, yeah.
I mean, so
I think that crop being in Lafarge, you know, things coming to Lafarge that are just totally different than we also. So we were talking about the dam ending, and that land sat vacant for about 50, well, not 50 years. I don't know, 30 years. It was owned by the Corps of Engineers. When I was a kid, it was called the government land. You know, there was no rules out there,
Sounds
so we
awful.
would go out there and just go bananas. You know,
Wow.
do whatever you wanted. It was great. It was a great way to grow up as a teenager.
I bet.
And because there was like no jurisdiction out there, there was
Wow.
no laws, there was no, you know, nobody could
Anarchy
go out there and
zone,
really
huh?
do anything, you know. And then the federal government gave it to the state of Wisconsin, and then he started the Kickapoo Valley Reserve on it. And so the reserve has brought in some much needed rules and regulations around. I mean, I hated it at first. Hated
Yeah,
it.
of course.
Hated it. That was the worst thing you could do. But being a man now and understanding rules and understanding why we set rules and boundaries and things, you know, we're really lucky to have that. And it's brought a whole different kind of culture of. It brings a lot of tourism, a lot of people. The Kickapoo Valley, the
People
Kickapoo
that are
River,
into nature, conservationist type.
Yeah, the wild things. We have the Rockton Bar and the chicken on Sundays. It
Yes.
just draws us. We draw from every walk of life. We have horseback riders, bicyclers, canoers, kayakers, adventure campers, trappers, hunters, gatherers. You know, we have ginseng and mushrooms and all these different things that people are out there hunting and gathering, and then we have business people coming into Organic Valley to make millions of dollars worth of deals, and we also have the hippie culture. They have the backwoods life people that don't want to talk to anybody, that grow their own garden, and they, you know, and we have all this going on here, you know, in a small space, but we're not bumping into each other either.
Yeah.
You know, like, you know, I almost can always come to my stop sign at the end of my street, turn right, turn left, or go straight, and never wait for a car. I can't stand waiting for anything. I don't like stoplights. I don't like going to lines. I don't like waiting in line. I don't
Man,
like
the
waiting.
Closest stoplight's pretty far from us. I
It's
guess
a long
Viroqua
way.
would be
Viroqua
the
has
closest.
stoplights. Yeah, that's our
They got a few.
big town, 5,000 people. There. Big city life in Viroqua.
My friend came to visit from Dallas a few weeks ago. You
I
know,
bet.
did you meet her? I can't remember.
No, but
So you know, and she hasn't like spent much time in the countryside. She's like lives in the stadium where the Dallas Cowboys
Yeah.
live or whatever.
Right.
It's like it's a completely different life. And why did I start telling this story? Now I completely forgot.
the stoplights.
The stoplights. Anyway, she was just amazed at everything about this experience. And she was she needed to go to the pharmacy, and I was asleep. It was the middle of the night. So she's looking on her phone where the closest pharmacy was. She's like, the CVS is an hour and a half away.
Yeah, we don't have them on the corner. Yeah, get all your ibuprofen
She's
before
just
you go
like,
to bed.
what? I didn't know that was like a thing.
Yeah. Yeah, you have to plan your days, plan where your stuff a little more.
It's nice to get to be more intentional and less wasteful, I find.
Yeah.
You know.
And just figure out what you really need and what you don't need.
Yeah. Very
Sometimes you
helpful.
don't need to get up in the middle of the night and go to the
CVS.
Just
Yeah.
go back to bed.
Yeah. Oh, that's so good.
Yeah.
All right, Zach, before you go, is there, let's see, I want to ask you, like, what is one thing that you have learned from the nature here that you want to leave people with?
Well, from nature is how we've lived our whole life. Okay? So when we moved here, it was because of nature, right? Because there was going to be a dam and there's going to be a lake and there's going to be, hunting and trapping and gathering and things that we loved and needed, right? All of us here from nature. So, and then as vegetable farmers, we use nature to grow vegetables, the soil health, with wild things. The nature gave us animals and a renewable resource that replenishes itself and needs harvesting to control, population and control disease and things. And then, it wasn't being wasteful because we were using the fur. So that was nature. They gave us a life. They gave us money. They gave us an income. They gave us a purpose to be here in the valley, to stay here in the valley and not go to the city to work, right? It gave us this amazing life and ability to grow here and to give back to the community and give back to nature, which I do now at Organic Valley. I work in the carbon insetting program.
Nice.
So I'm out teaching farmers how to reduce carbon, to work in manure and compost, to give back to nature. So nature has given me everything that I have today, and I'm working very hard to give as much back to nature as I can.
That is awesome.
So
Perfect note to end on.
Yeah.
Thank
Yeah.
you for
Yeah.
all you do and all the ways you give back. It's totally inspiring.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Vicki. Thank you for inviting me here on this porch.
Yeah. Can we tell people how they can buy fur from Wild Things online? Do you know the website?
Oh, yeah, www.furhats.com.
Damn, that's awesome. Furhats.com.
Maybe Wild Things. Might be wildthingsfurhats.com.
Wildthingsfurhats.com.
We should get it right.
Yeah, we'll put
We'll
it
get the
somewhere
website
there.
right, but wildthingsfurhats.com. Yep, check us out. My daughter Mackenzie there, she works there full time.
Cool.
So we're very fortunate to have that. So
Thank you, my friend.
thank you, Vicki. Enjoy the rest of this day.